and welcome to Craft with Sarah and day 12 of the card making countdown, where I'm sharing a brand new card making project with you every day for 14 days. Today we are creating beautiful borders and frames for handmade cards. First, we'll make the pre-made design included with today's project. Not only as a greetings card as it comes, but I'll also show how you can do a few magic clicks in Design Space to turn it into a shaped card with a printable middle as well. Then we'll take a look at this elements kit. This has lots of little shapes on it that can all be brought together to make your own truly custom frames, borders, even bookmarks. We'll see how to design symmetrical projects so that it's the same either in every corner if you're doing a frame or top and bottom if you're doing a straight border design. Let's get started. This project is part of the 2026 Card Making Countdown. Download the cut files for free for the first 24 hours after this video goes live using the links in the video description or by visiting craftwithsarah.com/cards26. After 24 hours, the cut files for this project can be purchased from craftwithsarah.com/cards26 files. Or get the entire card making countdown plus loads of extra bonus files from craftwithsarah.com/cards26 bundle. The download comes in a zip folder. You need to unzip this before uploading the SVG files into your cutting machine software. For instructions on how to do this, visit craftwithsarah.com/help and choose Cricut, Silhouette or Scan and Cut. Within there are dedicated help guides on topics such as how to upload SVGs, how to modify them to make custom projects, framing tips, and how to cut cardstock with your type of machine. If you have any questions, email hello@craftwithsarah.com. Now, on with today's project. I've uploaded the two pre-made card designs into Design Space as well as an SVG. This is actually a design from my shop. It's a Gerbera Daisy flower pot design, but you can put anything you want onto the front of the frame card. I've just got something here to show it as an example. The border card is this one. I called it a border card because it's kind of a vertical border down the middle. I couldn't think of how else to describe it. This one doesn't necessarily need anything else added to the front as it makes up a lovely card by itself. But the frame one, because it's got all this space in the middle, it does lend itself nicely to putting something in that space. You can change the colours on the design by opening up the layers and clicking on the layers, and then you can change the colour up here. I'm going to do this from a sort of galaxy inspired pattern paper that I've got for my base, and then a dark purple and then white for the top. I'll keep the base card in white so that I can write my message easily on the inside. When I'm cutting from pattern paper, I like to make the layers either a really bright green or a really bright pink to remind myself that this will be the pattern paper when I'm going through and getting it cut out. As I've got quite bright pink in the flower down here, I'll do it as the lime green. Equally, you could change it to a colour that kind of matches in with the vibe of your pattern paper if you're using pattern paper to see how it looks against all the other colours. Once you've changed the colours, the design for this card is basically ready to cut, but you may wish to add a score line to make it easier to fold. To do that, go into Shapes and choose a score line, and then go into Size and make it the height of the card, which is 7 inches. Click on the card design and ungroup the layers by pressing the Ungroup button at the top of the Layers panel. Then drag a box that touches the base card layer and the score line and go Align and then Center. If you don't see center, use vertical and then horizontal. Then with those two layers still selected, press Attach at the bottom of the Layers panel. Attach is what tells the Cricut to do the scoring in that exact place. If it jumps to the top above the card, you can press Arrange to back to move it back down and then drag it back into place. You don't have to drag it back into place because it doesn't cut in this exact position, but I like seeing how it's all gonna look before I send it to cut. For the other card, the frame card, I'm gonna do similar. This time, I'm gonna ungroup the layers, change the colours. I think I'll go for a nice bright yellow, which will look nice against the Gerberas. And get this on. Needs to be a little bit smaller, I think. I like the yellow as my background, but now that yellow flower is blending in a bit. I think I'll change the colour of that one. Maybe we could have purple flower that side instead. And then I'll change the middle bits of this flower to be the same as on the pink. I know this isn't directly related to the actual project from today's countdown post, but if you're new to changing colours in Design Space, hopefully it's helpful. I'm going to go black for that one, and also that one. There we go. Okay, I like how that's looking. Then finally, I'll add that scoreline to the base card. Exactly the same, so insert a line, size it to the size of the card, which is 7 inches. I've already ungrouped the layers, so I can just drag a box that touches the scoreline in the base card, press align, center, and attach, and then arrange to back, and put that back into place. This would now be ready to cut it out, or you can save it. That's probably a good idea if you've done lots of changes. Connect to your machine up here, and then press make over on the top right. That will separate out all of the colours for you. You can change the paper size in the drop down here, and then if you want to, you can click and drag to move things about to take up less space on your cardstock. Just make sure when you're moving things that nothing overlaps, otherwise it won't cut out properly. When you're happy with how all of your different colours are looking, press continue and follow the on-screen instructions to get everything cut from cardstock with your Cricut. Here are the parts of my card cut out and ready to go together. For this project, I'm using Barely Art Glue, but I also like Collal. The reason I like these two glues is they don't bend or wrinkle the card like other glues can do. I'll be adding some depth underneath my flowers with foam squares. There are lots of different brands available. These particular ones are 5x5mm and 2mm thick, but they can be bigger, smaller, thicker, thinner. It's completely up to you. I've already glued together all of the pieces of my flowers. I haven't used any foam squares in this, it's just glue, and it does still have a lovely dimension to it just because of the thickness of all of those different colours in there. I use foam squares underneath to put it to my card so that there'll be a little bit of pop out from the background. Here's my base card, and I've already folded it down the score line. Then I've got my solid colour and then the very detailed border piece to go on top. So I'll start up by gluing the solid piece onto the front of the card. Then we'll glue on this piece. Be careful around the edges as they're a little bit fragile where they're narrow. You should be able to get a nice glue line around the edge, and some in the middle. If you can, get some dabs of glue on some of the swirls as well, so that it's a nicer, stronger stick overall. You don't want any of those pieces to catch when they come out the envelope and possibly tear. Working quite quickly as the glue dries quite quickly. You don't need something on everything, but a few little bits in there is helpful. And then we'll put this on here and push down really gently because you don't want the glue to smush out and be visible in any of the space. It does dry clear, so if that does happen, it's not the end of the world, it won't notice much, but it's a little neater if it doesn't. Then for my card, all I've got left to do is to add my Gerbera daisies on with some foam squares. I'll add quite a few on here as this is fairly heavy with all the layers of cardstock. I want to make sure it stays really well stuck. If you are putting on bigger pieces like this, then as well as going around the edge like I've done now, also put some foam squares in the middle. That way it will be a nice stable stick the whole way across and it will look better. Now I can peel the tops off to reveal the stickiness underneath. Put that in the middle. Gently drop down. That way, if you're not happy, you can move it. I like that. Push down to stick. Obviously yours will be a bit different depending on what you're putting on the front, but there we go. That is my pre-made border with one of the designs from my SVG shop in the middle. It is a beautiful card, and that border really finishes it off and draws the eye in to whatever you put in the centre. We'll do something very similar with the border card. I've already glued my bit onto the front here, and I've glued these bits together. So this is just going to go straight down the middle, again with foam squares. This time I'll use slightly bigger ones, because this would need a whole lot of those tiny ones to get it to stick, and this will be a bit quicker. Once again, I'm working my way downwards, adding a good amount all on here. And a few in these middle sections too. It's always better to have a few too many than not enough. And again, peel the tops off to reveal the stickiness underneath. And I'll line this up in the middle. That's not really in the middle, it's too close to the left. That's not straight. That is better, although I've put it upside down because my butterfly in the middle is now upside down. Let's try this one more time. I'm glad I noticed that before pushing down on the foam squares to get them really well stuck. There we go. Okay. That's the other version all done. It's so striking, even though it's fairly simple in terms of the actual assembly, but because we've got this beautiful detail on, it makes a beautiful card to go with it. Now let's go back to Design Space and see how you can use the included elements kit with today's project to build your own designs just like these. Next, let's look at how to design different borders and frames using the included design elements from today's download folder. You get all of these shapes included. To make it a little bit easier to show the technique, I'm going to replicate the existing designs with the elements over here. It just means that I've got something to use as a base and a guide to get all the shapes in place rather than trying to think of a new design and also talk through how to put it all together. If you are new to doing this sort of thing in Design Space, then it is a nice idea to try and copy what's already there just as your first one to get used to how you move everything and join it all together. And after that, you can follow on and create your own truly custom designs. Or jump straight in with your own new design from the beginning. Okay, so I'm going to ungroup all those card layers and delete everything apart from the border. We'll move that over to one side and make all of this a little smaller and then ungroup the layers. For designs like this that go straight down a card, we're going to do it in stages. First up, we'll design what we want to go that goes down until nearly the middle. Then we'll join all of that together and rotate it and duplicate it so that there's a mirror image underneath. Then we'll see if anything needs to go in any of the gaps to bring it all together. For example, the butterfly in the middle. You might find it easier to start with a guide template so that you know how big to make your final design, particularly if you're doing this to fit a certain size. So this one, what is it? 7 inches by 2.2. Let's just copy that for the time being. I'm going to create my guide with lines rather than a rectangle. If you use a rectangle, it means it's really easy to accidentally grab that and move it about rather than moving the individual elements within it. It makes it a bit harder to move things around in Design Space. So instead, I'm going to change this to a basic cut so it's a straight line and use 4 of these instead. Okay, 7 inches tall, and I'll need 2 of them, and then 1 more. And this was 2.2 inches for the width. Rotate it 90 degrees and then duplicate that. And then I'll roughly line them up like that. Drag a box around all of them and press arrange to back. And now when I'm designing and moving things in here, it means I can really easily still grab them. It's not going to try and get the edges instead. If you click the edges, they will move, but if you're just working on stuff in the middle, it should stay where it's supposed to. Move all these a bit closer so I can see what we've got, and then start building your elements together. You can do this however you want to, using whichever pictures you want and joining them all together. But as I said, I'm sort of roughly copying that just to make it a bit quicker. Zoom in to make it easier to move things about. And you can duplicate to make another copy in exactly the same size. And it's nice to flip designs. We've got flip here and flip horizontal. Because my left and my right here is sort of symmetrical, I'm going to add them both in as we go, but then at the end tidy it up so it's a bit neater. You'll see what I mean as we go. If you preferred, you could just design one side of this bit with the bits that go in the middle. So you could have this bit at the top and the butterfly, but only put that heart in and nothing that side, and then copy and paste them at the end. That one would be there. And then it's just a case of getting all your images where you want them to go. Remember to leave enough room between everything that you'll be able to cut it with the Cricut and it's not going to tear the cardstock. I think I'm actually just going to do it sort of one-sided. That'll be easier. I need a little heart. I might not be using the exact same shapes as the other one. Doing it more as a rough copy so that we get a nice idea of what it could look like more than anything else. Alright, so I'm going to keep going down until I end up at the middle. Here's what I've ended up with. Now, is it exactly the same as the one on the left? No, it's not. I've done some different images, moved some in different directions, and made it a little bit more unique and my own. Now that I've got to this stage, we can look at tidying things up and then creating the mirror images. First up, click on all of the images, keep the Shift key down on your keyboard so you can select them all. And we're going to select all of the images that make up the bit that goes down the middle. So these will not get reflected on the other side. You may wish to change the colour of these just so it's easier to know which ones are which. Press Align and Horizontal. That shifts them all, so now they're all perfectly aligned with each other. It will make your finished design look much neater and more professional. Then we'll group them for now. Now that you've done the alignment, you might need to shift some of the other images about if they're now looking a little too close. I'm using the keys on my keyboard to move these about. Then we can select everything that's left, and so that I can find this a bit easier, I'm going to group all of them. Then you can just click down like this here and group. Zoom back in, then duplicate it to make a copy. Then these ones will flip horizontal, drag them roughly in place, then select both of them, so both of my black groups, then press Align and then Top to put them exactly one above the other. Then get your two groups and group them into one. So now I've got all of these together. Select that and your yellow and press Align Horizontal. Then that makes sure that the middle bits are exactly in the middle of your left and the right ones. And then if we put that back to black, that's what we've ended up with. Then just a few little taps of that alignment tool and it starts looking really, really good. Okay, so next up we can select both of those and group them into one. And duplicate. This time we'll flip vertical and drag that into place, and then align and left, to make sure they're exactly one under the other. I can see now that I've done this to tool to fit in my guide. So at this point you can either make everything smaller, and that would work out well for this one. It's still a good size to cut. Or if you think by doing that it makes some bits a little bit too hard, then start ungrouping, and I need to ungroup one more. Delete those copied ones and go back to this one, and then start moving your individual shapes about to make it all so that it will be a little bit more all squished up together. For instance, I could maybe make that smaller and then bring it down and rotate that one round like that. And then we can do the whole thing again and see how this is looking. It's a little bit trial and error, but we will get there. I'm selecting all of them. Check I've got them all, which I do. So then align horizontal. I'm doing it again so you can watch me do it for a second time. And group. Select all the black ones. And group. Duplicate. Flip horizontal, get it roughly in place, then select both the black ones and align top so that they're both exactly in position with each other, and then group them. Select that and the yellow and press align horizontal to put the yellow exactly in the middle, and then we can change the colour and group everything together. Duplicate it. Flip vertical, put roughly into place, select them both and align left. Okay, so now with that little tweak, this is fitting much better. I could even get away with making it all a little bit bigger. Or at this point, you could keep it at that smaller size and move the two apart from each other a little. Need to align it again. And then you could add other images in the middle that won't get repeated. For instance, a little butterfly. This creates a focal point for your border and helps draw the eye in. And then I could maybe do some swirls or something coming out the side. These I probably would want the same left and right. So we'll duplicate, flip horizontal, and then align them to the top so that they're the same. And we could put it exactly in the middle again by selecting our top and bottom and grouping them, and then we'll choose the sides and the butterfly and group them, then select that and the base and press align horizontal. It shifted it just the tiniest little bit there. And that is now looking lovely. I like how that is going. Okay, so at this point we can delete all of them, delete that one. And now you can decide what it is that you want to be doing with your shape. If you're doing like the card I showed you at the beginning, where we're cutting it out as a stencil, then what we can do is get a rectangle this time that's the size of the background. For mine, that was 2.2 by 7. Hide all the score lines and group all that together. Go arrange forward, drag a box around the yellow and the black, and we'll go align center to put it exactly in the middle. Then we'll make a copy of the square, and these ones will be combine, subtract. And that will cut all of the shapes out of the rectangle. So you see now we've ended up with this pretty two-tone. It could be a bookmark or it could go down the front of a card, whatever you want to do with it. You can do the same sort of thing to make up frames. This time I've arranged the images together to make one half of a corner design. So this one, these ones will be the ones that don't get copied. Everything else I need to make it go this side. My score lines have been changed to make the front of a 5x7 inch shape. So you can see those there and how it's going to fit. Okay, let's hide those for now and hide the lines so that I can grab all of that and group it. Put the lines back on, put them back on. We'll duplicate our shape, and this time, because it's going at a different angle, we need to flip horizontal and then rotate it round 90 degrees backwards. Or you can type 270 in the rotate box, and this will go up about there. Then we can select all of that, and because this is at an angle, I'm not sure we can align it like we did before. I don't think this will work. No, it won't. So we'll have to do it a little bit more by eye, but that's looking fairly the same. Maybe more like there. Okay, so that's my corner. And then we can group all that and duplicate it and go flip horizontal, put it up here. For this one, I don't want the butterfly, that will just be one there. So we'll find that and delete it and regroup. Then this would go up here, and now because these are straight, we can go align top. And I've gone a little bit too big, as you can see. And that one isn't tucked in quite as close to the butterfly as the other side. So we'll nudge in a bit, but it is going to have to be smaller to fit nicely on my 5x7. And then we can group, duplicate, flip vertically, and make the bottom. And now I can see that I'm going to need to bring the design elements back in and do a few little bits more in here to join them together. So what I do at this point is add some more swirls and pictures to go about halfway into the gap, and then duplicate it the other side and flip it around. Or you could do some really big swirls and maybe just have one that goes all the way down there with some little dots or shapes around the edge. Once you've finished building up your frame all the way around, then you would merge it all together using weld and then cut it out of your base card shape exactly like we did for the border design a little while ago. Here's how you could turn your border into a shaped bookmark. So we're back at the stage here before we subtracted it from the rectangle. We won't need the rectangle for this bit. Duplicate to make a copy, and then press Combine, Weld to turn this into one layer and hide your original. Having the original means that if you want to go back and change it at any point, you can do that on the original one, whereas this one we've joined all together. Go to Effects and then Offset. And this will make a border around the edge. Press Apply. I'll make this a yellow colour. Hide your weld result and see if there are any little gaps in here. This one I've got two tiny cut lines that the Cricut would definitely struggle with. There's no point in having them. If you've got any little gaps, fill them in by pressing Contour and then hide all contours and apply. So now those are gone. Click on the background, the offset layer, and press the Alt key if you're on a Windows computer or Option on a Mac, and that will change your mouse cursor to get a plus icon next to it. When you see that, click, and that will make a copy of the same layer in exactly the same place. And this one, let's change to a darker gold. Turn your welded design back on, and then choose that and your top offset and press Slice. That cuts the shapes out of here, so we've ended up with that. And then this is the start of our bookmark, but we're not quite there yet, as we want a little circle on the top to add a tassel or some ribbon through. I'll just align these in the center. Go to shapes and choose a circle. Get that roughly in place over here. Then we'll give it an offset under effects to make the frame not too thick, and apply. Slice them out and delete the middle bits. Now you've just got the outer. Drag it down so that it's touching your bookmark. And I probably should have gone a bit thicker. That looks a little weird. I'm gonna go back. Give it a little bit of a thicker offset. There we go. Okay, we'll duplicate that in place with the Alt or Option key again. Select everything and press Align Horizontal to put that circle exactly in the middle. Make sure it's touching your layers. Then hide one of them and hide the top layer of your bookmark. And change that to yellow. Drag a box around them and press Combine Weld to join them into one. Drag it underneath and then do the same with the other ones. So that's my darker gold. Select the darker gold layer and combine weld. So now we'll have these two pieces to cut out, which can be glued together to make the bookmark. If you want to make it double-sided, then duplicate your top layer, and it should be symmetrical if you followed exactly along, but you can go into flip and flip horizontal. Oh, so it wasn't quite, because those butterflies aren't quite symmetrical. It did change a bit, but I think the outer bit was the same. But that way you know it will exactly line up, even if you've got some bits that maybe aren't quite completely 100% symmetrical. You can make shaped cards in a similar way to the borders. So here's my bordered design. I've welded it all together already. And just like before, we'll go into Effects and Offset. Choose your offset width, I quite like that, and press Apply. Make it a different colour so it's easier to see. And then mine doesn't have any little holes in it, but if yours did and you wanted to fill them in, you would use the contour tool again. I like to add a second offset layer to make another bit, so it's a little more detailed and pretty. Then select all of this and change the size to the size of your card front, as it will have got bigger from adding the offset. So I will go 5 inches. That's a little bit smaller than 7. We could make it exactly 5 by 7. That will stretch all the pictures a little bit, but I think that's okay. And we will hide the bottom one and the top bit. Duplicate that one in place with the Alt or Option key. And then slice or subtract that one out. Then we've got this one, which will be the colour underneath, and then I'll border around the edge. This will be the main card base, so I'll do mine in white. Duplicate the bottom layer and move it over. At the moment, this wouldn't work as a card because there's nowhere to put the fold line, so what we need to do is cut off one of the sides a little bit. I've got a square here. Drag it so it's about the same height, a little bit taller than your card, and change it to a guide layer in the operations drop down. And then position it over until you're going to have a good amount of straight line where you can put a score. I think I'm going to go right under to where it goes inwards. Then that's a straight line all the way down there. Slice those out from each other, delete the guide bits and the bit on the left. And then duplicate, flip horizontal, and then we'll go align top, and then use the arrow keys to nudge it in until those bits are just touching. You can align it top again just in case you've accidentally moved it, and then go combine and then weld. If you can still see a vertical line down here, that means they weren't quite touching. So undo, move them a little bit closer, and then put them back together again. Fill in the gaps in the middle with contour, hide all contours, and apply. And then we'll add a score line to make this easier to fold. This is 7 inches tall. Drag a box around both of them and align center, and then attach. Attach is what tells the Cricut where to do the scoring. So then this would cut out and you would fold it down. That means you've got the straight line down here, so you don't get the pretty side over on the left of the card. But that's why we've still got a copy of that front shape, the white one over here. So that would glue to the front of the card on top of this one, and then it will go over and overlap the score line, so then you'll still see the pretty side on that one as well. It'll become a bit clearer when I stick it together shortly. You can then add whatever you want into the middle. I'm going to find a nice picture to cut out, maybe a watercolour effect garden or something like that, and just make it a rectangle shape so that it will fit underneath. Basically sort of like, it'll end up being kind of like that, so that it will fit in the gap under there, and then I'll see the picture through. Here's a look at the bookmark. I've glued my pieces together already, and it's double-sided. You probably see it better if I hold it this way around. I've used 2 shades of gold for a lovely shimmery effect, and it's all ready for me to add a tassel to. I forgot to bring any home with me. My craft studio is a few miles away from my home. My home is where I record, so I don't have any to hand to put them on for this video, but you kind of get the idea of what it would look like when it was finished. I've also got the pieces here for my shaped card. I've got the base here, which I folded down the score line. And then next up, we'll glue this piece on top. This completes that shape on the front, and from the back you'll just see a tiny little overlap against the score line, but not very noticeable, and most people don't really look at a card from the back anyway. I glue this on. Ooh, just thinking, I don't want any glue right down this side, because otherwise you'll be able to see the glue marks from the back. So let's leave 1 centimetre or so. I've just done a line down there, but I won't then put the rest of my glue past. You could put your glue on this bit instead, but then I was worried I might come out too far. Although actually that's not really a problem, because it's going to get covered up by the picture. So that may have been a better way to do it, but I'm just thinking. I think actually what I wanted to do first was glue my picture to the back of this, wasn't it? So let's do it this way. Glad I noticed before I put that on. Okay. This would have been easier without glue already everywhere, but never mind. Put that in there. That is not straight. The picture I've used doesn't matter too much if it's straight or not. Okay, now I can add the glue. So you could put it straight on the front, because now it's going to be completely covered up. I was not thinking that through clearly when I did that the first time. That's what happens when you record a lot of videos in not a lot of time. Everything starts to slip. Okay, there we go. That's my base card done there. And then I'll use foam squares to pop this one out for a bit of dimension. This will be lined up, and we'll be able to see a little bit of the white all the way around. By gently dropping down to start with, it means if you're not quite happy, like I was not then, you can pick it up and move it, because it won't have stuck yet. This is hard to line up. better, but I'm still not quite straight. There we go. We got there. There is my beautiful shaped card all stuck together. It stands up really nicely, even though it's got the wavy edge base to it. And that's a lovely way to use the designs for your borders in a slightly more creative way than our original card, but both are still absolutely beautiful. And of course, don't forget the border version too. I hope that you enjoyed this video for day 12 of the card making countdown. If you did, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for loads more Cricut crafts and card making fun. I hope to see you again tomorrow for day 13 of the card making countdown. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Bye!